Previously, on the Fan of History, Sargon II died in battle in 705 BC, leaving the throne to his son Sennacherib, who now becomes the king of the Neo-Assyrian Empire. It took some time for Sennacherib to take control of the Assyrian Empire, and we will see again and again that Sennacherib likes the part of being a king where you're a builder, but he does not appreciate having to be a warrior. But he is a pretty angry warrior when he has to be Sennacherib the warrior. Merodach-Baladan, who used to be the king of Babylon. He is in exile in Elam. He is plotting against the Assyrian rule over Babylon. This is briefly, we talked about this so much before that I briefly go through this, but Babylonia has a Sumerian native population. The Assyrians like the native population, the city dwellers of Babylonia. They consider them their brothers and they want to rule the city dwellers. The Chaldeans, tribesmen, three major tribes, they are in the south of Babylonia. They do not like the Assyrians and the Assyrians hate them. Kassites in the eastern foothills of the Zagros mountains in eastern Babylonia. They are rarely on the side of the Assyrians, but they will become less and less important. Arameans all around in Babylonia. As soon as there is disorder in Babylonia, Arameans go plundering. And of course, to the southeast of Babylonia is Elam, the ancient kingdom that has worked against Assyria many a time before. But if Elam could become an Assyrian ally, everything would change. So, in the late 8th and 7th century, Assyrian policy towards Babylonia had been determined personally by the Assyrian monarch. Sorry, that's the late 9th and the 8th. Who is making these notes? Well, I am, so okay. The Assyrian monarch had to decide how to try to rule Babylonia, and a new king often meant a radical change in direction. And now this happens again because Sennacherib does not authorize the incorporation of Babylonian royal titles into his titulary like his father did. Remember, Sargon courted Babylonian favor and basked in signs of acceptance, but Sennacherib does not care about acceptance. He does not value Babylonian opinion. He is an Assyrian. In the last episode, Sennacherib built his own Babylon 2.0 in Nineveh, and he has no need for the original. Sennacherib never performs the minimal duties of a Babylonian monarch, but he is the king of Babylon. Will this be a problem? Oh yes, it will. Sennacherib will experiment with the government of Babylonia. He will try several ways to rule Babylon. He will rule personally from a distance, that is from Nineveh. He will put a non-tribal vassal king named Bel-Ibni on the throne of Babylon. He will put his own son and heir on the throne of Babylon. But none of these methods will work very well, and the relationship between Sennacherib and Babylon will be problematic. There is one good sign. Sennacherib installed the text on the splendid breccia pavement of the central processional street named Ais Shabu in Babylon. And you can see a replica of this street at the Pergamon Museum in Berlin. I was there this summer. I filmed a bit. Check out the YouTube channel. Well, I mentioned Bel-Ibni, the native Babylonian who will become the king of Babylon under vassalage of Sennacherib. Bel-Ibni is a young Babylonian nobleman. He was raised at the Assyrian court, and Sennacherib knows this guy quite well. He references Bel-Ibni as a man who had grown up in my palace like a young dog. We will get back to Bel-Ibni, and this picture has nothing to do with it, but I am thinking Sennacherib to the left and Bel-Ibni raising his hand there. But that is not what this picture is about. I just thought it was fitting. It's hard to know any Assyrian king as a person. They do many things to just look like each other. They they want to give the illusion that the same guy ruled Assyria for 1,000 years. But we have some indications of the personality and the character of Sennacherib. Many Assyrian kings were builders, but Sennacherib is the builder. He makes pictures of himself building. He portrays supervising laborers moving a bulk colossus. His interesting engineering techniques. He boasts that he devised a new method for casting bronze monuments. So he's also Sennacherib the inventor. This intellectual trait will return in full force in Sennacherib's grandson, the last of the great kings of Assyria, and maybe the person to blame for the empire's fall. Sennacherib never stops thinking of Sargon's death, and this death in battle really hurts Sennacherib's mind. But Sennacherib is not only a builder, he is also a lover. Every Assyrian king has a huge amount of wives. And we heard of a few of them. Remember Semiramis? And on the podcast we had a report from a grave of an Assyrian queen of Ashurnasirpal and Shalmaneser. But of all the Assyrian kings, Sennacherib is the only one who expresses any love for any of his wives. And he says in an inscription, "And for Tashmetu Sharat, the palace woman, my beloved wife, whose features the mistress of the gods has made perfect above all other women, I had a palace of loveliness, delight, and joy built." Another wife is also known, Nakia. But this expression of his personal feelings is unique among Assyrian kings before him. Ashur-nadin-shumi is the crown prince of Assyria. Like Sargon and like TP3, Sennacherib made clear who was to succeed him. It was Ashur-nadin-shumi, but we have no picture of him. And no spoilers, but that is probably a bad sign. We know of at least 2 other sons of Sennacherib, and of course he had a ton of sons with all these wives. We know of Arda-Mulissi, and we know of Esarhaddon. In 704 BC, we have the 19th Olympiad. Menus of Megara wins the stadium race, and I haven't been able to find out anything else about the 19th Olympiad. So if you know anything about the 19th Olympiad, tell me. In 704 BC, we have the oldest lock and key from Assyria. Locks and keys are known to appear in ancient Mesopotamia and Egypt around 4000 BC. That is a long time before this. They were simple wooden devices with a toothbrush-shaped key. Look at this construction. Well, if you're violent, you could easily crush it. So these locks were vulnerable to brute force, but at least you saw if somebody had broken in. The key was very bulky and heavy. The oldest of these ancient locks were found in the ruins of Sargon II's palace in Khorsabad, and they have been dated to 704 BC, which seems strange, but maybe Khorsabad was finally abandoned after a couple of years. If the podcast continues past 701 BC, if we can find $30 on patreon.com/fanofhistory, we will see a lot of interesting things being invented around 700 BC. But those are for the future, and they will not be covered in this YouTube show. In 703 BC, there is a revolt in Babylon. They have realized that Sennacherib is not his dad. He will not be a good Babylonian king. He will not be in Babylon. And surprisingly enough, the revolt comes from the native Sumerian population, from the city dwellers. There is a provincial official from a prominent scribal family, and he takes the throne of Babylon, claiming that he is Marduk-Sakir-Shumi II, which is kind of a weird name to take, because Marduk-Sakir-Shumi I was the great friend of Shalmaneser III and a pro-Assyrian Babylonian king, or at least a Babylonian king who knew how to deal with Assyrians. Marduk-Sakir-Shumi II, this guy, he doesn't know how to deal with Assyrians because he will get crushed by the Assyrian royal army if he tries to fight it, but he won't even have the chance, because he will not do very well as the king of Babylonia. Because now, with Babylon in turmoil, Merodach-Baladan returns, and he kills Marduk-Sakir-Shumi II, who only rules Babylon for 1 month. Sennacherib is down. He's still having trouble controlling the Assyrian Empire. Merodach-Baladan strikes again. He is a known quantity to the Babylonians. I have argued that he is possibly the best king Babylon has had since 1000 BC. And he has an easy time reclaiming the throne. Merodach-Baladan is a Chaldean of the Bityakin tribe, and he already has a lot of old diplomatic ties, and he renews them, and he makes a few new ones. He knows who doesn't like the Assyrians, and he will try to bring them all together. He will have the urban Babylonians on his side, the Chaldeans, the Arameans, Elam, the powerful kingdom to the southeast, the Arabs, and Yatie, the queen of the Arabs, even sends her brother Baskanu with an Arab army to help Merodach-Baladan. And the Kassites are not mentioned here, so that's surprising. Maybe that's just because they are fading into obscurity. King Shutur Nahunt of Elam, he receives a massive payment from Merodach-Baladan. Come join the fight. And he does. He sends 80,000 Elamite archers. And remember, in 720 BC, the Elamites scored a victory against Assyrian fighters. There are 13 Elamite generals joining the army of Merodach-Baladan. And he also sends an embassy to Judah. Hezekiah of Judah is very upset with the Assyrian vassalage. He doesn't like paying the tribute. And in Kings and in Isaiah, Merodach-Baladan shows up talking to Hezekiah. The dating of this event is uncertain, but I'm going to go with 703 BC. Merodach-Baladan says, come join the fight against the Assyrians. And Hezekiah does. He rebels, and Judah has survived so long as an Assyrian vassal state. Judah has avoided the fate of Israel by being loyal to the Assyrians, but now Hezekiah rebels against Sennacherib and Assyrian rule. Shebitku, the pharaoh of Egypt, brings up an army from Nubia. Shebitku might have done this on request from the petty princes of Palestine, including Hezekiah. He will bring his brothers, and we will talk more about Shebitku later, because dating is really uncertain here. Merodach-Baladan prepares for war against Sargon's son. He splits his forces into two groups. He stations one group at Babylon itself. He stations one group at Cutha. You can see these places on the middle of the map, right west of Emut-Baal, Babylon and Cutha. Sargon had deported people to Israel from Cutha, and Shalmaneser III mentions Cutha in line 82 on the black obelisk inscription. Sennacherib is not pleased with this rebellion, of course, but he is like, I wanted to build this new awesome capital. But Merodach-Baladan is back, and he is causing me trouble, and Babylonia is causing me trouble, and I will make them pay for this. So Sennacherib gathers the host of Ashur, the divine royal army of Assyria, and he goes to war. He invades Babylonia. He sends an advance party to Kish, who was probably holdout for Assyrian loyalists. Kish is south of Cutha here. Merodach-Baladan moves against Kish, but Sennacherib's main army is marching against Cutha. So Sennacherib has time to defeat the allied army at Cutha, and then he descends on Kish. And Merodach-Baladan is at Kish, and he must now use his favorite tactic and run away. Merodach-Baladan is the master of running away, and he takes refuge in the marches in the Bityakin homeland, and he leaves behind his wife and lots of stuff in Babylon itself. And Sennacherib now marches on the ancient capital of Babylonia, the city in the middle of the world, Babylon. And when he has beaten the allied army at Kish, when it comes to Babylon, there isn't much of a fight. They don't want an Assyrian siege. They let him in. Sennacherib captures Merodach-Baladan's wife, other female family members, the royal treasury, and many courtiers, Only the palace is plundered. The Assyrian army is not allowed to ravage Babylon this time. So, Sennacherib gave it a shot. He wanted to be the long-distance king and have a long-distance relationship to Babylon, but that didn't work. So time for plan number 2. Time to put Bel-Ibni on the throne of Babylon. So this year had 4 kings. Sennacherib was the king of Babylon. Marduk-Sakashumi was the king of Babylon. Merodach-Baladan was the king of Babylon. And now Bel-Ibni is the king of Babylon. But he is not a true vassal king. He has no power of his own. He has to do exactly what Sennacherib tells him to. And he better do it, because Sennacherib wants to get back to Nineveh and keep building the new capital. But before he can go back home, he has to destroy the Chaldeans. Once again, the Chaldeans have to be punished. Merodach-Baladan is still out there, and he has been opposing the Assyrians for 30 years. Sennacherib ravages the tribal areas. He destroys most major towns and many villages of the Chaldeans. The Bit-Yakuri, the Bit-Shalai, the Bit-Amakani, the Bit-Yakin, which is Merodach-Baladan's own tribe, they are all defeated. Urban rebels, both tribesmen and native Babylonians, they're taken off as prisoners. And many representatives of the principal Aramean tribes in Babylon are also taken off to Assyria and never seen again. Well, here are the Kassites, because in 702 BC, Sennacherib attacks the Kassites. It's a short expedition into the adjacent Iranian mountain regions against the Kassites and the Yasubigali tribes. Nabu Bel Shumati of Kararati, he sees where this is going, so he pays tribute. Ispabara of Illipi, who Sargon put on the throne of Illipi just 2 episodes ago. He refuses to pay tribute. Merodach-Baladan is going deep into hiding. He is not involved here. Bit Kilamsak is captured and made into garrison. The Kassites and the Yasubigali are defeated. And people are brought in to settle Bit Kilamsak. But from where? And then Ispabara. He won the throne of Illipi by betting on Sargon. His brother bet on Elam, he didn't get the throne. But now Ispabara makes the bad call. And when Sennacherib shows up with the royal Assyrian army, Ispabara has to flee. And Sennacherib is angry as usual. Sisurtu, Kumaklum and the province of Bitbaru, they are added to the Assyrian province of Karkar that Sargon established. The city of Ilensa is made the capital. It is renamed Kar Sennacherib, the Fort Sennacherib. The governor of Karkar, an Assyrian, is put in charge of everything. And Sennacherib returns to Assyria. He doesn't plan to hang around. He has been over the new year in Babylon. But he doesn't want to be in Babylon. He wants to be in Nineveh and build. So he's returning. He probably pays another visit to Babylon. But Merodach-Baladan, he is not done. He's plotting against Assyria again. And there are several reports preserved where people send messages to Sennacherib and to the intelligence service in Nineveh that Merodach-Baladan is here somewhere. We know he's trying to make rebellion again. And the Babylonians know that, and they long for the return of Merodach-Baladan in another run as a Babylonian king. But the Assyrians can't find the guy. Is he in Elam? Is he in the sea land? There is also another leader appearing among the Bit-Yakin. His name is Chusubu, and he's probably the later king of the Chaldeans, Mutshesib Marduk. But I believe that he is a lackey of Merodach-Baladan at this point, because Merodach-Baladan has all the real power over the Chaldeans. So what about Bel-Ibni as king of Babylon? Economic text dated to this reign shows that Bel-Ibni was recognized as a ruler in the northern cities of Dilbat, Nippur and Babylon. There are some damaged tax exemption documents showing that Bel-Ibni exercises power in Chaldean territory at some point during his years as Babylonian king. There are official documents from 700 BC saying that Bel-Ibni's jurisdiction has been restricted to northern Babylonia, while real Assyrian officials are administering the south. But this is probably a lie, because the Chaldeans are probably in control of the south at the end of this century. In 700 BC, Sennacherib will return to Babylonia again. But that is beyond the scope of this show, because we're going to end in 701 BC in our next episode. But if we can find $30 on patreon.com/fanofhistory, we will cover Sennacherib's return to Babylonia on the podcast. Fan of History, the podcast, is on iTunes. Check it out. Merodach-Baladan survives this century. He's hiding somewhere in the marshes or in Elam. He's probably behind all the troubles in the south. And if we go beyond 701 BC in the podcast, we will hear from Merodach-Baladan again. The next episode is the destruction of Sennacherib. Sennacherib will go to war against Judah, and this will become one of the most famous incidents of Assyrian history. Please discuss this show with me on YouTube or on Facebook. Look up the podcast. Check out the Facebook page, Fan of History. You can reach me on Twitter at Dan Horning. We have a WordPress site. Don't check that out because I'm not updating it properly. But the most important thing, if you like what we do here, if you like Fan of History, please support us on patreon.com/fanofhistory. You can give us any amount per episode, like $1 per episode. You can decide how many times a month you want us to make episodes. And if you cannot give us money, you can also subscribe to the show on YouTube or on iTunes. You can like, you can share. So please help us out, because we really want this show to grow. Thank you for watching.